Hello, I am Bentham and welcome back to Factorio Towns. In the previous episode we set up a new train delivering various different components to the town of West Point. We've got processing units, advanced circuits and batteries being delivered so that we can make all the different equipment we'll need for our power suit. We have the actual power suit itself fully made and just I'm even wearing it, ready to go, but it's not that much use to us until we've got some shields in it and some fusion reactors and so on and so forth. So the train is running, but we want to make sure that it's got a decent supply of all the different materials, because we have been having some trouble recently with the circuit supply, which will not be very good for processing units and advanced circuits. So we go over to the first stop on the train schedule, which is Flaskmere, and we find that at the moment there are basically no processing units being made. A couple got loaded onto the train when it arrived, but there are just huge periods of time where the machinery is not doing anything because it's waiting for a train to turn up with some circuits, which is not good. So really we need to find some sort of way of boosting the circuit production, and the solution seems to be increasing the amount of copper being delivered to Chipton, seeing as the amount being mined is pretty much as it can be. I mean, I could make the miners more dense, but that is a short-term solution that will only make things, it'll help the same long-term result, I guess, rather than make things worse. It's better to try and find a different way of fixing it. So there's not much we can do there, really, apart from look at it and see how bad it is. So we continue on to our next location, which is Redport, and in this one the situation is quite similar. There aren't enough circuits being delivered, so the production of advanced circuits is not so great, but in Redport there's something we can do about it, because Redport has a huge copper deposit, and at the moment we're not really using it that much. We've got 4 miners running and 4 smelters, and we don't need that much here. There's only a little bit actually being used for the production of the advanced circuits. The rest is just sat around, I think some of it gets delivered to Frackham maybe, but otherwise it's just sat around not doing anything. So what we could do is boost the copper production here and then get it delivered down to Chipton so that we get more circuits being produced, and thus we get more production up in Redport. A nice little bit of a sort of a trade system there. The two towns help each other out in the production. But there you can see one of our circuit deliveries arrive. It doesn't look too terrible, it's quite a nice amount, but it gets burned through quite quickly, and overall there seems to be more demand than supply when it comes to advanced circuits. So I'm just watching the trains at the moment. Basically I'm working out the best way of delivering the copper in. My initial plan is to deliver copper ore directly to Chipton and then have it smelted on site, but I realise that we already have it being smelted here, and the smelted copper plates are already being loaded into the train anyway, so we might as well just upgrade that a little bit and save us a bit of time. Which is sort of there's something about that I don't like. I'd prefer to deliver the raw materials, but we've already got it being smelted here, so it really makes no difference. Well, apart from adding an extra fiddly step and causing the limiting factor to be the smelting rate over in Chipton, because already that is running at a decent speed. It just needs to be running at full speed so that we can get as much as we can out of it. So I added in 2 new copper smelters and a few new miners, and that should result in a nicely boosted supply. We've also got some stack inserters now instead of fast inserters on the loading system, which should mean that the train will be fully loaded with as much as it can be when it visits. And then we go over to Chipton to sort out the unloading. So we'll have to make a gap here in this coal belt, so we've got room to get it unloaded. And just as I'm setting it up, the train arrives, and I realise I've actually got it backwards. The train comes facing the other way, so we need to put it on that cargo wagon instead. So that was quite lucky that it turned up, otherwise I would have just set the whole thing up and then realised I'd been a bit of a derp. So it should be fairly simple to do. I don't put in stack inserters on this end because I think that copper is used somewhere else as well, if I remember rightly, so I don't want the unloading rate here to be as quick as the loading rate there, because that could mean that there's no copper left for anywhere else. So we just put in some fast inserters, filter inserters, which I remember just in time, and that should be fine. It should still boost it enough that there won't be any problem, but when I actually have a look at the all the circuit production here, I realise that the limiting factor isn't copper at the moment. The copper system is actually running at full speed, so the limiting factor is iron. Even though it shouldn't be, because the iron and copper should be perfectly balanced. The way that circuit production works is that it uses exactly 2 iron plates for every 3 copper plates. So if you have 2 iron smelters for every 3 copper smelters, then you have a perfectly balanced bit of production, and as long as you have enough of both, then production always runs at full speed, and neither of them particularly builds up or runs down. But for whatever reason, the copper plates are built up and the iron plates have run down. It might just be that it looks like that, because it could be that the copper is being used up just as fast as it's being made, but it does still seem a little bit weird. So what I do is add in 2 new iron smelters to help balance that out, and that should now mean that the limiting factor will be copper again, until we actually hook up the supply of copper plates. So anyway, this should be helping the circuit production by quite a bit. It does look quite good, though it's still not filling up any of the loading chests, which means that still all the towns that actually use circuits are using them up quicker than they're being supplied. And this is pretty much inevitable considering the sheer number that you need to make processing units. You need 20 circuits per individual processing unit, which means that seeing as we've got like 8 assemblers of that or something like that, it might even be more. Did I put 16 in or something crazy? I forget, but yeah. We're never going to satisfy that level of demand, but every little helps, basically, because the supply of processing units is trying to meet the demands of West Point's consumption for all the production of the powered suit components. So we connect up the copper plate line. We don't do it in a very clever way. We could have used a splitter and things to make it neater, but I want to prioritise the on-site smelting still over the supply that's being brought in by train, just because we don't know if Redport might end up running out of copper in the future, which wouldn't be good. And at some point we'll probably just have copper being delivered entirely from some special copper mining town anyway in the future. In fact, at some point we'll probably end up with a separate copper smelting town and a separate copper mining town as we sort of spread things out further and use up our supplies. So anyway, that should help things. It does seem like even with the not very the not very throughput favouring system that I set up there is still enough that the copper lines have built up again on the circuit production. I think we also added in a couple more iron furnaces again, so what we've basically done is we've added in 4 iron furnaces in Chipton and then 6 copper furnaces in Redport, so it should still be balanced. It'll probably be a little bit in favour of iron plates because of course not all of the copper plates from Redport are being delivered to Chipton, but that should be fine. I think at this point it is now, we now have more production of the plates than consumption by the current circuit assembly array that we have in Chipton, so the next step really is to just upgrade the circuit assembly rate by adding in some new assemblers, and for that we'll probably need to expand Chipton a little bit, and I don't really fancy doing that until we've killed some more biters, so that'll be something to do once we've actually started fighting back a little bit. But anyway, we've now gone over to Frackham. We've continued checking up on the production of the various different components for power suits. We've already looked at processing units and advanced circuits, of course, so we've now upgraded them by upgrading the circuit production. So the last thing on the list is batteries, where I finally decide to add in a second chemical plant. So far we've managed to get by with just the one because we've never been prioritising actually doing science that much, but now that we actually want a decent supply of power suit batteries, we probably want to add in a little bit more battery production for that. So we've doubled it up, which should now mean that the science the supply of batteries to science is the same as before, and now the power suit components are getting as much as the science was, and it will not be, hopefully, the limiting factor. I mean, once we arrive, it turns out that we don't really need batteries anyway, because we already have a couple of the level 2s, and actually I don't really want that many. I don't usually bother with that many batteries. I usually prefer to just focus more on power generation, the idea being that if you double your power generation instead of adding in a whole load of storage, then it means that your power suit will have a more sort of constant, presence. Is that survivability or something like that? Basically, you can always rely on the shields being charged at a certain rate, whereas if you're using batteries, then you can rely on them being charged really well, but only for a set amount of time, and then the batteries run out and you can potentially be in quite a bit of trouble. I prefer to have it so that the suit is more consistent, and I can depend on it over sort of longer term battles. Anyway, over in West Point we have some deliveries of the processing units coming in, but I keep hoovering them up because what I need is the power generation, of course. I've literally just been going on about it. We need a couple of portable fusion reactors, specifically 2, because that's the usual setup that I use, and I want to get those made before I bother with anything else. Because it's because I don't have them being assembled here, so I just want to make them in my inventory, and it makes sense to start with those, because then I can use them with however many shields are ready, and just slowly increase the number of shields I have as time goes on. But there weren't enough processing units in West Point for me to be able to actually make any, so I go up to Jewelborough, where there should be a decent supply that I can hoover up to make a couple of fusion reactors out of. So we stand there hoovering them up from the end of the line. We make our first one and then our second one, and I've noticed that the supply is doing really well, and then when I go over to the chest to see why, I realise that we never put any limits on any of the unloading chests here, and so there were just like 20 stacks of processing units sat in the Jewelborough unloading station. And suddenly I realised that actually the circuit problems were nowhere near as bad as I thought. What was actually happening is that all the circuits were being taken and put in the storage in Jewelborough, where they were just never going to be used up. So what I do is I empty out like a whole bunch of those stacks and take them down to Flaskmere, where I can sort of re-inject them into the system at the start, and they can go wherever they're supposed to. So yeah, whoops. Always got to pay attention to limits on chests if you, especially when dealing with really rare and expensive stuff like processing units. So yeah, now we've suddenly got a huge amount of them, and we won't need to worry about them for a good while, I imagine. This is probably more than enough to make all of the power suit components that we need once the train has visited enough times to get it all loaded on. There we go, it all gets emptied out and everything returns to normal, and now it's just a case of waiting. Now the limiting factor, I imagine, is the rate of production of the assemblers over in West Point, so we just have to get on with some other things while we wait. And it's actually, I suddenly feel a little bit aimless really, because at the moment all my plans have been based on sorting out the production of the power suit components, and then what to do once the power suit components are made. I didn't consider what to do in the meantime really. So I just have a look around the map. Recently I've been noticing that the stone supply in West Point is running down quite rapidly, like a lot quicker than I expected, and it seems like it's going to be running out pretty soon. We have a fair bit of stone based equipment like in storage now, but it's only going to last so long, and at some point we will need a new supply. So what I decided to do is just build a tank and drive down to a nearby deposit. It's a really tiny one, but every little helps, and we'll set up a nice little outpost here to get it mined, so that we have basically a backup supply. And yeah, after seeing how quickly it's been running down in West Point, and the fact that we want to have all of the outposts paved and all the rails paved and loads of paths between all the towns and things paved, we just don't have enough stone, and we're never going to have enough stone unless we edit in a deposit. So I've fully decided now that whenever I can be bothered to, I'm going to try my best to just generate a new deposit of stone somewhere on this map, so that we can build a town on it and actually have a stone producing town, because it's never gonna work otherwise. We just need too much stone, and I want to decorate things, and I can't because we don't have any spare stone going around. But yeah, in the meantime, we'll mine this tiny deposit here and hope the biters don't care. It is inside pollution range, as are the biter bases around it, so it's not a good sign, but I put 10 fully armed turrets in place around it, which should hopefully fend any attacks off. And yeah, it's a super compact one. There's just a single solar panel there. It's not made to mine it particularly quickly. It's mainly it's supposed to mine it quietly, produce minimal pollution so the biters don't notice, by just mining at a super slow pace, less than the speed of a single miner. And in a few episodes' time we'll be able to come back here and have a decent supply of stone built up should we need some in an emergency. Yeah, we've probably used up more stone though building the walls of that thing than we will get from it for a good long while, but it's a long-term investment. Eventually we will get the extra stone. Anyway, we go over to the main area to resupply as we usually do, and I'm crafting a couple of turrets, mainly because I've just used up a bunch making that stone deposit, but also because I want to go down and work on the wall over in West Point. We've left that alone for a while, but it's about time we continued on with it. It's a particularly good time at the moment because the biters aren't actually attacking through it, but they will be once we get production running again. Currently the pollution, I tried to combine pollution and production there. The pollution has receded by quite a bit because production has not been going particularly fast, but at some point it will get up to speed again, and at that point the biter will get quite angry about it. So let's have the wall in place before that happens, so that we'll be nice and ready for it. And also we've got nothing to do while we wait for the parachute to be ready, so we might as well have that in place. Because we'll need that in place before we can properly use the parachute to clear out the desert. We need to be sure that the biters won't just recolonize, so by putting the wall in the way, we stop them. Anyway, I was just on my way over to West Point when I noticed a lot of explosions going on back at Frackham. I've been trying to ignore them, which is a bad idea really, but slowly throughout the episode we've had like one after another attacks, slowly taking out more and more turrets, and I realise I do have to go over there and deal with it at some point. Annoyingly, they've blown up one of the flamethrower turrets, the one that was a little bit awkwardly placed. It doesn't seem to have been really working, so I just got rid of it and just put in a solid row of turrets, which should hopefully be enough to fend off the biters a little bit more effectively than the base has been doing so far. Running along, resupplying everything. We use up pretty much all of our ammo supply, but luckily our destination next is West Point anyway, which is where a bunch of ammo is being unloaded from Fortin, so we can just grab it from there. So we make our way over, following the tracks along, mainly because there are no other safe routes. That's the thing, I used to be able to just drive through the desert as I pleased, but it's now full of biters, and if you stray from the tracks, you're like, it's not going to be long before you end up crashing straight into a biter base that tries to horribly murder you, and probably succeeds, because I've not yet got the parachute properly set up. But anyway, over in West Point, I grabbed some of the shields that have been made, and I noticed that the limiting factor now is actually steel, of all things, that we're making on site. So I just add a couple more furnaces in, and then I also just like dump some of my my own steel supply into it to help boost the thing, because I just want to get it done. I just want to get these shields made as soon as possible so the parachute can be up to full speed, and we can just finally go out and just burn all the biter bases to the ground. Anyway, we started setting off out to work on the wall, but I ended up crashing into one of the turrets. I get in a weird situation where the belt is pushing me into the turret, and if I try and move in the tank, then it causes the turret to get damaged, but if I don't, then the turret is fine. So that was a bit weird, and I managed to get out of it eventually. And then we set off down the wall to continue extending it along. Last time we were here, we stopped because we ran out of walls, but we now have plenty of walls available, so we should be able to just carry on for a good long while. Unfortunately, when I arrive, I realise that the two biter bases up ahead are really quite close, and will definitely not be happy about me advancing this wall along, and it's pretty much inevitable that as we go forward, we will get close enough for them to attack us. So I take it nice and slow, just doing like 2 turrets at a time, waiting for the point where they'll just charge in, and then I'll try dealing with them. Basically, I'm trying to use the turret creep method, where the turrets that I'm creeping are actually a defensive wall that I'm building, which is a weird way of doing it. And it's perhaps not the best way, because usually I put them in a nice dense row so that the biters haven't got a chance against them, basically. And I don't really do that so much here. They're more spread out and being loaded by the burners and such. But as I'm going, I realise I should probably make some more poison capsules so I can actually deal with the bases when I get in range of them. And night falls as we finally come into range. And it goes fairly well, actually. The turrets deal with them before they can really do any damage. But unfortunately, it has the effect that we've seen quite often in Rail World, where the base was full of big biters and splitters, and then they all got killed, and they all got replaced by behemoth biters and spitters, which is not so great. We managed to deal with a little bit of the defences there, but they're really quite angry at me, and I end up drawing the attention of multiple bases, and then I make the terrible mistake of leading them onto the wrong side of the wall, so they don't actually have to go through the wall to kill all the turrets, so they just run through and murder like half a dozen of them. So yeah, whoops. We start fixing it up again, and extending along a little bit further. Luckily, that little exchange was enough to push the biter bases back beyond like frequent attack range of the turret, so it did work to a certain extent. But yeah, we'll come back once the parachute is properly operational and deal with them more properly. But yeah, that is all we'll do on the wall for now. We're running out of materials again anyway, and we'll make our way back up to West Point to finish the episode. Next episode, I imagine, will get the shields fully made and the parachute fully operational. That is the hope. We will have to see if that is actually what happens. And as soon as that is ready, I will finally deal with all these biter bases, and we can finally expand in peace after brutally murdering them all. So with that, I shall say goodbye. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time.